Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to today's event. I'm Poppy, and as always, I am delighted to be your host today. Now, if you were with us last time, you were probably left on a bit of a cliffhanger because we had some connection issues, but we're back and we're better than ever. And I, for one, am so excited to dive right in and get learning about wine. So, today we are rejoined by the award-winning wine educator and Loire Valley native, Paul Declerck, author of the best-selling book How to Appreciate Wine. This is part one of a four-part series where we will be introduced to Paul's game-changing five-point framework that will transform wine from mystery to mastery. This first session will give you instant expertise for you to take to your next dinner party and kicks off the four-part series seamlessly. So, if you're like me and you've ever stood in front of a wall of bottles and thought, I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking for, you are in exactly the right place. And as a necessary disclaimer, please consume alcohol responsibly and in accordance with local laws and legal drinking ages. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Born into a winemaking family in France's Loire Valley, Paul Declerck works at Cult Wines, which is the world's leading fine wine investment company. He's hosted dozens of wine tasting sessions for beginners and experienced people alike, and he is known for his clear and relaxed style. He's very passionate about making wine more accessible, one glass at a time. So today he is with us to share this essential framework that the serious wine lovers use to evaluate any wine confidently. Paul, we are so excited, and now I will welcome you and pass it over to you when you're ready. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Lovely to have you here today. Now, I'm sure everyone is so excited to dive in, so I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me. Welcome, and thanks again for having me. It's lovely to be here. I'm going to start by a brief introduction. Hello, my name is Paul Declerck. I grew up in the Loire Valley in France. I've been living in London for 12 years, but I grew up in a family of winemakers, producing a lot of different wines, from rosé to reds to sparkling to sweet white wines as well. And we've been making wine in my family for four generations now. I currently work for Cult Wines, as you mentioned, Poppy. It's the largest wine investment company in the world. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is because I wrote a book called How to Appreciate Wine. In this book, I wanted to help beginners know what to look for in a glass of wine, and I created what I call the 5 points method. So that's what we're going to have a quick look at today. This is the French wine map. I just wanted to show it to you to show you where I'm from. You can see here the Loire Valley. This is where I'm from. I grew up near the town of Angers, but I was born in Saumur, which is somewhere here. Anyway, it's always interesting. France is made of plenty of little pockets of wine producing regions. The most famous are obviously Burgundy, Champagne, Bordeaux. But anyway, this is where I'm from myself, which is one of the biggest wine producing region in the world, actually. So what to expect from this little call, from this little presentation today? Well, an introduction to the 5 points method. I'm also going to give you some practical tips, which are always nice and fun to do when you have a glass of wine in front of you. And also, I'm going to, maybe one glass at a time, try to make you feel a bit more confident in front of a glass of wine or in front of a wall of wine, as Poppy mentioned. So what do you need? Well, not much. I would like maybe your attention, a tiny bit of interest. Wine is an incredibly complex topic. So if you have a tiny bit of interest in it, it's going to help you today. You can or you cannot have a glass of wine with you. That's really up to you. If you do, you're going to be able to implement the 5 points method immediately. So I like to start my tasting by reminding everyone that we are here to create moments. If you think about it, in 100 years from now, anything you possess, from your car to your clothes to even your house, will either no longer exist or will belong to someone else. And what we possess is only temporary. It's never truly ours. There's only one thing that only belongs to us, and it's our memories. What we make with our time, what we live in the moment right now. So this is why we are here. And what we should be doing every day is trying to make every moment a tiny bit better. Now, I personally love a fantastic moment with my family, a nice glass of wine or some friends. That is, in my opinion, the best moments to live. So that's what I always try to create. But keep this in mind, none of the things you possess actually matter really. What really matters is the moments. I'm going to tell you briefly about wine investment now and cult wines because I'm sure some of you might be interested. Basically, what we do is our clients give us some capital. With this capital, we buy cases of fine wine. We then store them in perfect condition. It looks like this in a big warehouse just outside of London in the UK, in perfect conditions. And then we also sell it a few years later for a profit. That selling part is actually the hardest part to do because sourcing the wine, storing it is not that hard, but finding some people to buy your wine when it's 15 or 20 years old is actually not that easy. So that's where we are specialized, I believe. We have a network of hotels, shops, restaurants all around the world that buy from us mostly for two reasons. First, because they are certain of the storage history. It was not stored at home in, unknown conditions. So we're able to sell at the market price when we need to sell. And the other point is it's not a counterfeit. All the wines in our warehouse are carefully checked. We know it's not a fake wine, basically. There's a little QR code here if you are interested in wine investment. You can always send me an email. My email address is at the end of the presentation. You can contact me anyway. I'm more than happy to explain more to you if you're interested. So this is the book. As I said, we now have three products. There is the book itself, which is in front of you. We also have an online video course, which was just published on Saturday, which goes through the book and yeah, there will be a lot of very interesting things. It's pretty much 40 videos that are between 2 to 8 minutes long about how to open a bottle, how to hold your glass, the 5 points method, of course. So again, you can scan this QR code. It should take you to the website. But then, so there is the book, the online video course, and there is also wine tasting. So I host physical wine tastings in London once a month. The next one is in Rioja, and it's the last Saturday of this month of May. So if you are around, if you would like to join, you will also go from the website howtoappreciatewine.com. You will find all the information there. So yes, this is the online video course. This is what it looks like. So you can join here. I have actually created for whoever is attending today a little discount code of 50%. If you type Bonjour 50, then you will be given 50% off on the cost of the course. So don't hesitate to use that. So let's dive into this. What actually is wine? Well, wine has been around for a very long time to start with. It's not as old as beer, but actually it is very old. The oldest traces of wine are around 7,000 years old, so quite very old. But basically it's fermented grape juice. And it has a taste and a texture like a lot of other food or things we consume. But actually it is very complex. It's a very complex world because you have different colors of wine. You have red, white, rosé, sparkling. You have different grapes, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay. You have different regions, as I showed you the French wine map earlier. And what is actually fascinating about it and why cult wines and wine investment in general exist is because it evolves over time. And people are willing to spend more money for a bottle of wine that is 15, 20 years old than when it was freshly bottled because it has developed some flavors that only time can give. So this is what is wine. In short, there are three things to check when you have a glass of wine in front of you. First, you have the appearance, what it looks like. So we're going to check the color, we're going to check the viscosity, we're going to check also the bubbles potentially, if there are some. The bubbles don't only exist in sparkling wine like Prosecco or Champagne, by the way. They can be in some Riesling, German Riesling. There's a famous producer called Egon Müller who's famous for his very, very thin bubbles. It's almost not sparkling, but anyway, it's among the most expensive wines in the world because this style is only him can produce. And yeah. The next thing is going to smell the wine. We want to pay attention to what it smells like because it already provides you with some aromas, flavors. Again, like food, right? So what the flavor profile is going to be made of three different things. I'm going to take you through this in a second, but you have three different styles of aromas: the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary aromas. And then finally, we're going to taste the wine. So there is an intensity, there is the balance of the wine. You might have heard this word before. I'm going to try to explain it to you today. And there is the finish of the wine. The flavor profile, again, you have primary, secondary, tertiary. And then in red wine, you also have something called tannins, which is they are biochemical compounds that really grip the inside of your mouth. People know them from black tea as well. If you let the tea infuse quite for a long time, actually it's the same. They are tannins in tea as well. So the tannins, you will assess their quality, their intensity, and their texture. So what I'm trying to make people understand is that enjoying a wine is very different from appreciating its quality. Enjoying a wine is subjective. It's based on personal preference, and there's no right and wrong answer, obviously. But how to appreciate wine is different. You actually need to. There can be a wine that you don't like, but you recognize it's actually a great wine, right? That's where I'm trying to take the people attending my wine classes and my wine tastings. Because let's say you don't like white wine, right? And I hand you over a white wine and I tell you, is this a good wine or not? That is what I want you to be able to achieve. I want you to tell me, I don't like it, but actually it's a great wine. It's a great wine because it has fantastic finish. The texture is fantastic. The balance is amazing, but it's a white wine. It's not my favorite thing. Fine. That's what we're trying to achieve. So you need, in order to get there, to use a systematic tasting method. And you want criteria that are objective. Your assessment should be independent of personal preference, which is what I just mentioned. They should be measurable. Criteria should have a quantifiable standard for rating. And they should be transferable. The meaning of the criteria should be clear and easily understood by wine enthusiasts everywhere. Now, this is not necessarily easy, but I've created that framework for you. And I was inspired by wine critics all over the world. You might have heard of this name before, Robert Parker. He revolutionized the wine world in the 80s, let's say, because he started rating wine like no one did before and giving them 100 points, scoring them out of 100 points. Now, a lot of wine critics exist today. There are literally dozens and dozens of them. Some specialized in Bordeaux, some specialized in sparkling wine, etc. Robert Parker is very famous for that 100 points system that he created. But Jane Hansen is a very good example of another very popular wine critic. Now, these people are very strict into how they assess wine because they try between 1,000 to 5,000 wines per year. Now, try to calculate how many per day this is. This is minimum 3 glasses per day. So that's quite a lot. They don't drink it all, but it's quite a lot of wine. And they need, if they try the same wine twice, they need to come up to the same score twice. So they need that assessment to be perfect. They rate wine between, out of 20 or out of 100 points. But what is interesting is that over the years, I've actually looked at the criteria they look at, and most of them, even though there's slight variation, some might give 5 points out of 100 to the color, for example, or some people will give a score to the tannins, some others don't. But overall, all of these professional wine critics look at the same criteria. And I've pretty much summed them up into five, which is my 5 points method, which is here. Um, the five things they usually look at, and what I'm now teaching is, well, the intensity of the nose is number one. The complexity of the aroma is number two. Intensity of the palate is number three. Balance of the wine is number four. And the finish of the wine is number five. The idea with that 5 points method is to assess each of the points out of 10 points. We then we put them back here on the side, and we add a base of 50 points. In this case, it gives us 9, 10, 9, 10, 10, plus 50, that's exactly 98 points out of 100. So why this method is good and works is because first, it helps you know what to look for in a glass of wine. But second, it actually helps you to create your own score out of 100 points. This is not Robert Parker's score. This is actually yours. And you might end up with the same score as him, maybe not. There are some variation between professionals. Wine critics can award, one 99 points, the other one might give it the same wine 94 points. So it's the same with you. You are now able, using that 5 points method, to create your own score, basically, to get your own score out of 100. And this is an important factor. This is, by the way, a universal method. You can apply it to any wine, whatever the color, whatever the region it's from, or whatever the price you paid. Obviously, usually the more you spend on the wine, the better the score. But even something you spend £10 on might be worth looking at, because you might actually find that the intensity is pretty low, but the complexity is pretty high. You never know. So always good to try with every wine, and try to give it a score. So we're going to start by the intensity of the nose. I'm going to grab a glass. Give me 1 second. So we have a glass of wine in our hand. The intensity of the nose, the basis of this is that a fantastic wine should smell very strong and be very powerful. At the opposite of that, a terrible wine should just smell like water or almost nothing. So we are going to try to assess that intensity, the intensity of the nose, by using our face as a scale. Now, I should, by the way, mention that out of the 5 points, the two easiest to remember are in the number 1 and number 5. So pay attention to this one, because you can use it with anything, literally, and it's very simple. So you have your glass in front of your face. If you can smell the wine from below your chin, this is already 9 or 10 points out of 10. So you put the glass here and you try to smell. Can I smell anything? Can I smell any aroma? Maybe the cherry, maybe the honey, maybe anything. If you can, that's already a very, very good sign. If you can't, you raise to the bottom lip. Bottom lip, it's okay, but it's not the best. If you still can't, you raise to the upper lip. And if you still can't smell anything and you have to put your nose in it, then this is 1 or 2 points, really. This is not great. The best wines in the world, you can literally smell them from the table. It's that powerful. So this is a very simple tip. The intensity of the nose, you use your face as a scale, and I really recommend you to try to do it with any glass of wine in the future going forward. The number 2 is a bit more complex. It's the complexity of the aromas. Now, complex for a wine is actually a compliment. And well, we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 different types of aromas in wine. This is where it gets complex. The first one is the primary. They come directly from the fruit themselves, from the grape. So they usually feel like fresh fruits, or herbs or flowers. Now, all the wines will have primary aromas. The secondary aromas are made from how the wine was made by the winemaker. So it's a bit like the chef seasoning, if you see what I mean. Did they use the malolactic fermentation or not? Did they use oak barrels or not? There's a lot of things that come into play and that will give flavors. So, well, for red, for example, it can be wood. In Champagne, it will give a bit of this bread, or in the white Burgundy, they might actually taste like butter or cream. This is typical secondary aromas. Now, tertiary aromas is what I was explaining earlier. They actually come from leaving the bottle alone for years and years. They only start appearing after 7 or 8 years. So it needs a lot of time, and only time can bring you these aromas. Most of the wines that can age are actually red wine, but not only. Some white Burgundy, for example, can age very well and taste delicious. So these aromas are, well, in my opinion, some of the best. And really, I love an old Bordeaux wine, for example, because it tastes so good. It has this leather, it has this cigar box feeling, the forest floor. It feels like, it smells like you're walking into the forest just after the rain. So this is what you can get from a very nice and old red wine. So what we're going to try to assess here in the complexity of the aroma is, has this wine got some primary, secondary, and tertiary? We are going to use that wheel of flavors here that I have created. Now, this is available in the course, this is available in the book. Again, it looks scary, but actually it's not that much. It's pretty much all the wine flavors you can find in a glass. So you usually start from the center. So here you have the primary aromas. As you can see, they represent most of the wines. Then you have the secondary aromas, and then you have the tertiary aromas. So let's say we have a red wine. Well, very often red wine will be in the red fruit, black fruit. So we are somewhere around here. It might smell like red currant, strawberry, raspberry, or it might actually smell like black plum, fig, or raisin. This is incredibly useful to assess, well, what can I actually smell, and also to help you with the complexity of the aromas. Because the more flavors you can tick in there, in this wheel of flavors, the more, it doesn't want to go back. I wanted to show you the intensity. Sorry, it doesn't want me to go back. I was hoping, oh yes, there we go. So the more we have flavors here in the wheel of flavors, the more the complex the wine, basically. So a wine that is 10 points will have all the flavors, primary, secondary, and tertiary, and a lot of them as well. So you will have the cigar leaf, forest floor, etc. Wine can have up to 20, 25 different flavors. So complexity of the aromas. Intensity of the palate. So the intensity of the palate, which is 0.3, is very similar to the 0.1. The thing is, we don't have our face to use as a scale anymore. So what we are going to do is just to try to assess that intensity and compare it to what we've tried in the past. Again, a very good wine will feel like, that's why I put some fireworks here. It will feel like a firework. It will be explosive. It tastes so much. It's that first sip you put in your mouth. Is it almost like nothing? Does it taste like water, or barely anything? Or actually is it like a full explosion in your mouth? If it is, well, then that's going to be 9 or 10 points, really. If it's close to water, 1 or 2 points. The next one is also a bit complex. It's called the balance of the wine. Again, you might have heard this before, but balance is trying to assess what we cannot taste, but only feel. You remember I told you about texture. So this is what we're trying to assess here, the texture of the wine. Now, the full balance of the wine, and what the professionals usually look into, has 5 different things to look at in the balance. But I think this is very complex, and it can be reduced to only 2: the acidity and the alcohol level. Now, you might think that acidity is not a very good thing in a glass of wine. Actually, it is very important to have good acidity. Now, if you can taste that acidity, this is wrong. But if you need to have a decent amount of acidity to balance with the alcohol, which is exactly why it's called balance of the wine. So we're going to use here that fourth point, and we are going to measure the acidity and the alcohol. So to measure that acidity, remember the higher the better, to measure that acidity, we are going to try to feel how much our mouth waters when we put the wine into our mouth. Some wines, like champagne, for example, are very high in acidity, usually because they are harvested very early. Some are not. But so you try to assess how much your mouth waters. And if it waters a lot, then it is very high acidity. And then we are going to try to assess the alcohol. The alcohol is that burning sensation you feel when you drink, well, whiskey or grappa or anything that is very strong, right? It kind of burns the side of the tongue. It burns the throat a bit. What we're going to try to assess here is imagine a seesaw, right? We have acidity on one side, alcohol on the other side. Is there one that you can actually taste and feel more than the other? Um, or is it perfectly balanced? The best wines in the world, literally 100 points, will be absolutely spot on. They will walk the line. They will be just perfect. And well, not the others are not. Now it's very hard. It's very rare, sorry, to find anything below 7 because most of the wines today are very well balanced. Most of the wines you can find anywhere, even low quality, will still have a score of 7. So I wouldn't be too harsh there unless really it's too acidic and it tastes horrible. But uh, yeah, you're probably going to be between 8, 9, and 10 today because most of the wines made in the world actually taste very good. But the 10 points are only for the very, very best. Um, the fifth point is called the finish of the wine. Now, again, I told you number 1 and number 5 is going to be the easiest for you to remember. It is because it's very simple. Literally, as soon as you have finished swallowing the wine or spitting, you will start the chronometer. You can have your phone next to you with the chronometer on, you can count in your head, but the longer you can still taste the flavor of the wine, the better the wine. A terrible wine will be lasting between 0 to 10 seconds after you swallow. A good wine will be somewhere between 10 to 30 seconds. And an exceptional wine will literally be over 30 seconds in your mouth. My favorite wine in the world is Chateau d'Yquem. Maybe you've drunk it before. If you haven't, I highly recommend you to try it because literally this is recognized as the wine that can last for the longest, and you can almost taste it for a minute after swallowing. It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, so you finish swallowing and you're counting. Can I still taste this wine a long time after swallowing the wine? Yes, great indicator. So there we go. We have our 5 points. We have our five scores. So we copy them here. We give it a base of 50 points, and that gives us our own score out of 100 points. Okay. So that's pretty much it for me. I actually finished a bit early. It's only 30 minutes or 31 minutes in total. I thought it could be a bit longer. I'm more than happy to answer any question you might have, but I have here some of my links. So this is for the wine tastings. I've created a little WhatsApp group that has about 100 members in London at the moment. If you want to join wine tastings in London, please join this group. That's where I advertise them. This is obviously my Instagram. This is the TikTok. And you can send me an email anytime. I will be very happy to answer. So thank you very much. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much. I feel like already I won't be looking at a wine list the same because I'll be knowing all of those points to take into consideration. Now we've got some great questions coming through, so I'm going to fire away. Now we have one here. Well, this isn't a question, this is just a statement, but I'd love your opinion on this. I'm a huge fan of dessert wine, says Itala. What's your opinion on dessert wine?
I that's I love dessert wine, and it's very interesting because I feel like they are um, underappreciated at the moment. How to say? Sugar is not in fashion, right? It's kind of an understatement. Sugar is not popular right now, but we never know. It might be again in 10 or 15 years. And these wines that have been made for centuries were very, very popular in the past because finding sugar was actually almost impossible, let's say 200 years ago. And Chateau d'Yquem is a dessert wine. Now, it's something to try. It's something to have. I always like to finish on a sweet touch. I highly recommend people to be drinking some great dessert wine. And at the moment, because I also work in the wine investment side, I can tell you because sugar is not popular, they are so cheap. And even the best wines in the world, which is Chateau d'Yquem I mentioned, uh, you can find a bottle for like £300, and it is the best wine in the world of its category. So we are very far from the few £1,000 that are, in the white wines or in the red wines, really, or even champagne.
I love that. It always reminds me of whenever my parents used to go over to France, they used to always bring back dessert wine. And I remember being about 14, and I think it was the first time I ever tried alcohol, and I had a sip and it was so sugary, and I was like, wow.
This is honey in a glass. I
Yeah,
know. That's how it
I
tastes
still
like.
love it. It's so good. Now, I've got a question from Meredith. She says, how long do you allow the wine to breathe in the glass before you use the face method or intensity of nose? Do you swirl at all for this method?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Meredith. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer here because you can swirl, you can let the glass breathe. The point is always do the same. So I always swirl, right? I will always swirl because it's kind of mechanical at my point. But if you swirl, then always swirl. Don't sometimes swirl and sometimes not, right? Because it will affect your score basically. Because the more when you swirl, you actually let oxygen enter the glass, and well, the molecule of oxygen react directly with the molecule of alcohol, which are attached to the molecule, uh, the flavors molecule. So they will smell stronger just because you've given it some oxygen, basically. So again, if you do it all the time. If you don't do it, then that's perfectly fine as well. But be consistent.
That's great. That's a very good answer. Um, Another one from, gosh, we've got lots of questions going in. Who should I go for? Okay, Chris says, how best to develop your palate?
I'm very happy with these questions, I have to say. People are scared of wine. People are afraid because they feel like it's such a difficult world. And it is, between the different regions, the different grapes, the different. The truth is, the best way to do it is to taste and to go for it and just try to record as much as possible, which is also why on my um, obviously the 5 points method. I've got a book here next to me, so I will show you. So on the book, page 25, you have obviously these. Can you see anything? It's not going to let me.
Oh,
No,
the
I
background's
have to
blurry.
undo. Anyway, basically I have created a book of tasting sheets. So
Mm,
you can buy this tasting sheet books, which has, I believe, 50 of them, and you record everything you can. This is going to create your own little wine diary, and it's going to be something you're going to cherish in 2, 3 years or in 10 years' time, because you will be, oh yes, I've tried this Chateau d'Yquem, for example, before it was the 2011 vintage. Let me see what I wrote about it, and it's fantastic. It's the best way to do it. It's the best way to develop your palate. I know it's frustrating at first, but honestly, just write down everything because you're not going to regret it a few years from now.
I love that. And that's a reminder to everyone. You can, of course, purchase Paul's book. Let's go for Ryan, who says, do you have rules for the morning of a wine tasting day? What to do or what not to do?
Good question, thank you. Avoid wearing perfume, anything that smells. Be careful with your deodorant as well. Don't put deodorant just before entering the room, the wine tasting, because it will affect your senses. What I yeah, there's nothing really special that needs to be done, but try not to smell too strong. First, it's going to be difficult for you to smell everything, and the people next to you are going to hate you. So avoid this. One little tip, when you find yourself overwhelmed because you've tried, I don't know, 20 wines in a row, right? These type of things happen. But well, if your nose gets crowded, try to smell the inside of your elbow like
Mm,
this. It actually resets your smell to your own smell, and so it's a very neutral smell for you. So yeah, try this. If it's your palate, then always have little how to call them, like not sweet cookies, but more like um, crackers, something like that. That could be good to reset your palate.
amazing tips. Thank you. And now a question from, let's do Joe. Joe asks, can you explain tannins, please?
Yes, I can, of course. Okay, tannins are only in red wine, and they come from the skin. Let me briefly explain to you how you make white wine and red wine, just so it's completely understood, because it matters. Any grape juice is going to be white. White grapes, red grapes, if you press them, the juice is always going to be white. The only reason why red wine is red is because after they press it, they leave the skin of the grape in contact for at least a few days for the juice to get darker. Now, it doesn't only bring color, it actually brings these tannins as well. Tannins are a, a biochemical compound that are they basically grip the inside of your mouth. So I personally feel it just behind between my teeth and my gum, the just behind the lip, basically. Now it's again, they don't have a flavor. That is an important thing. They don't have any flavor. They only have a feeling. You can only feel them, which is why on the 5 points method, they only appear as point number six. And you cannot score them. You can only assess them based on their quality or their quantity. Now, very often tannins that are very young are harsh, they're grippy, they're too strong. But over the years, they actually soften, they get rounder, they get better, basically. And in terms of intensity, well, if you compare a Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, from Bordeaux or from the Napa Valley, um, it's going to be full of tannins, very strong tannins, where actually Burgundy wines from Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is a region, well, Burgundy is a region in the north of France, and it is it doesn't have access to so much light. So the skin is thinner and it will not give as much tannin. So usually Burgundy red wines are very low in tannin and they're not exactly transparent, but they're much lighter in color as well. So if you have more questions about tannin, ask, but I think I've covered the basics.
Completely. There's so much science to it. So fascinating.
It's
And
insane.
talking about the regions of France leads us nicely into Ryan's question, which is which wine region scores routinely the highest on your scale? And then he says Bordeaux question mark.
It's I was going to say Burgundy, but
Ah,
I don't
okay.
want to. I don't want to. No, the truth is, um, you can find absolutely delicious wines everywhere from every different region in France. But how to say, in order to produce fantastic wine, you need two things. You need fantastic soil and what we call the terroir, which includes the exposition to the sun, the microclimate, etc. So basically, what surrounds the grape itself. But then you also need to be very careful in the grape selection you make, because um, when you buy some grapes from the shop, grapes that you eat, right? You will always have one that is a bit overripe or getting moldy, and you will always have one that is a bit underripe. It's exactly the same for the wine. Now, the cheap producers, let's say, they put everything together. and they make an average wine, right? The best producers, the ones that are looking for quality, they will be very careful, handpicking every grape that they believe is perfect. They will only satisfy with perfection, sometimes taking only 5 or 10% of the whole bunch, right, of the whole production, just to have that, you know, level. So this is a common thing. And whether it is in Bordeaux, in Burgundy, you can have producers, there are not so many, but you can have producers in Burgundy that are not making very good wines. And this is very often the reason, right? It's because they are looking more at quantity than quality. And it's incredibly difficult to do both. So yeah.
Amazing. And then staying on French regions, we've got a question from Bruce which says, are Loire wines barrel fermented?
Yes, they can be. They can be. Again, adding some wood to some wine is something that is personal. It's a choice to the winemaker. It gives some flavors. It also softens the tannins. It adds a lot of complexity, which is can be interesting or not, both for white wine and for red wine. Um, Sometimes something that is quite popular in Burgundy as well is barrel fermenting. Instead of having all the grapes fermenting into a stainless steel vat, they actually put it in oak barrels, which will give it an extra complexity. Then they filter them and they put them back in the barrel. So yeah, it's
Process.
but it's so complex. Making
Wow.
wine and making all the right decision is very, very difficult.
It's incredible. Now, further afield, if we leave France and we go global, Rita has asked, are some good New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs ever good for aging?
That's a great question. Sauvignon Blanc is a beautiful grape. Now, the Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is usually made in a way to be drunk very young, right? Because Sauvignon Blanc can be like I don't know if anyone has tried some white Bordeaux, for example, but it's usually made from Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc in Bordeaux is aged in oak barrels, and then it has the potential to age for a long time. Now, Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is the same grape, but usually it's made to be drunk very young, just to preserve this flavors of very young passion fruit. Passion fruit and usually tropical fruit flavors is what Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand is the most famous for. And if you age this bottle, it's a bit like aging a bottle of rosé. It's not going to taste very good 5, 10 years on. Most of the flavors of the the tropical fruit are going to be gone and the wine is not going to be beautiful. So I would say in general, there must be some producers that I don't know that do, wine that can be aged, Sauvignon Blanc that can be aged, but it's definitely not the majority.
Interesting. Now, a question from Mary. She asks, how long should a bottle be opened before serving? Reds, whites, rosé, and dessert wines.
Okay, white wine, you can literally, there's no need to decant them. So
Mhm.
don't even bother. White wine, what I love to do during my tastings is bringing two glasses, one of wine that was decanted 6, 7, 8 hours, and the other one I just opened the bottle, and we tried them next to each other. This is a little game you can play at home when next time you host, right? You have a few friends, you do exactly that. So you decant
Well,
the
on May 13th, Paul, May 13th for our next session, that's everyone's task. 8 hours
yeah.
before
That's very good.
the can.
Very good thinking. So try that. Two bottles. First one you decanted, the second, but not decanted just an hour. Try it like for 6, 7, 8 hours, especially if it's a Bordeaux. Now, when we do these wine tastings, very often what happens to be white wines literally doesn't move. You can barely taste the difference of a decanted wine or not. But the red wines, now, don't do it with Burgundy. That's the only thing. Do not decant a Burgundy wine. That is my only recommendation. Burgundy or Pinot Noir in general, right? Like, don't decant Pinot Noir because it's very fragile, and especially if it's old, it's going to be alive for an hour, maximum two, and then die. So don't do this. But any any other wine, literally a full-bodied red, Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, Syrah, anything like that, decant it. Don't hesitate. Decant it for a long time. There is a moment when it's at its peak. It can be 2, 3 hours. It can be 8, but yeah, try 7, 8 hours. Literally, you will not be disappointed. Especially and young or old, by the way, because yeah, I've tried decanting a 1990 Léoville Poiferré, which is a Saint-Julien in Bordeaux, about a month ago. We decanted it for 8 hours and it was delicious. So don't hesitate. All Bordeaux, they can take the decanting for a long time.
Wow, okay. I'm going to ask you a question from Bruce now. He asks, how would you compare the best of Napa Valley with the best of Bordeaux?
Very good question. I like to, my French chauvinism is always here, and I will tell something that I like to preach. 99% of the wines in the world are made with French grapes. Cabernet Sauvignon, obviously Shiraz is Syrah, Malbec, but also Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. They're all the remaining 1% is Italian. But technically, Cabernet Sauvignon growing in Napa or growing in Bordeaux will taste like Cabernet Sauvignon. If you think about it, these different grapes are a bit like apples, right? You have the Pink Lady, you have the Granada, you have the different, it's exactly that, right? They will have different flavors, different texture, different everything. But technically, a pink lady that grows in Kent in the UK or a pink lady that grows in California will must, taste 90% like a pink lady, basically. It's very similar to that. So Cabernet Sauvignon growing in Napa or in California will taste very similarly to a Bordeaux Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, obviously, the terroir, the how the wine is made as well, right? Did they hand select the grapes? Did they the winemaking process is going to have a big difference. But overall it's the same grape. So it will not be, like two very, very different wines. But I highly respect the wines from everywhere around the world as long as they are well done. Again, some of the best wines I ever tried were Californians. So I can't, there's nothing I can say about this. I'm privileged, by the way, to work at Cult Wines and to be exposed in London to wines from all over the world because I know that if I was working at the same job in Paris, I would be drinking only French wines. So I'm very happy to be exposed to so many wines from all around the world at Cult Wines. Yeah.
Now, talking about Californian wines, you might not like to hear this, Paul, but that reminds me of university when we used to drink Echo Falls, and I know that's from California. And what we used to do is we used to, when there was a bottle open and we wanted to preserve it, we'd stick a spoon in, which I know is a completely debunked myth. So please may you answer Mary's question, which is what is the best method to preserve an open bottle of wine? And I don't think it's putting a spoon into the top of it, is it?
I don't know if it's been debunked. I don't know that, but it's only for sparkling wine, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's just my memory of university when we knew nothing about wine.
I've seen it my whole life as well. I remember as a kid seeing my parents putting this in there. Like, is it
Yeah.
going to work? Nobody exactly knows. Now, um, the I s- how to say it really depends on how much there is left in the bottle. If you have one glass from the whole bottle, then obviously the volume is going to stay together for longer. Usually, again, white wine can stay open for up to a week. Red wine is 24 hours, maybe 36, but it's never going to be as good. Just and again, if you've taken one glass or if there is one glass only left in the bottle, it's going to be well, it's all about the contact with oxygen, right? So
Mm,
the more oxygen, the more the evaporation of the alcohol, the less it's going to taste. And so, yeah, that's what it is.
thank you. And then for Scott's question, he asked which vintages are preferred to drink in 2026?
Okay. I prefer old wines. Again, I love old wines, but by that, I don't mean wines from 100 years ago. In my opinion, the best wines in the world will age for literally 35 to 40 years top max. Because after that, they start declining, right? Wines get good, 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 and then they're past their peak, past their prime, and they start declining. Um, the best wine I tried last year was a white Burgundy from Coche du Riz. It was a Meursault 2002. Now, you might think a white wine that was already 24 years old or 23 years old would be too old, but absolutely not. It was so good. When we poured it, it smelled and tasted like a normal Burgundy, but after 20 minutes in the glass, it started tasting like caramel popcorn, sugary, sweet. It was so special, really, really special.
Oh, that's so lovely. And I just can't believe how many questions we're getting, Paul. I don't, and we might have to try and rattle through a few. So, Joe asks, when a wine says reserve or cuvee, can you always expect a slightly better wine?
That's a, that's a hard question. I, I want to say yes, but no.
No.
No, because reserve pretty much means nothing. Cuvée usually means they've selected again part of of the press. For example, in Champagne, imagine the grape press. They press that very first juice that come out. They take it off. The end of the juice, they take at the very end when there's no more liquid, and they only keep what's in the middle, which is according to them the best. This is the cœur de cuvée, the heart of the cuvée. So this is in Champagne. When you see cœur de cuvée, it basically means it's the best juice, right? If you press the grapes too much, then you're starting to have things that are a bit maybe bitter, not tasting so good. Um, but yeah, cuvée basically means special selection, but is it always good? If you find a special cuvée at $5, it's not going to be good. Let's go. Let's.
Yeah, it can be misleading sometimes. Now this question is, how does classifying wines as full-bodied, medium-bodied, etc. relate to your 5 points?
Very good question. Because when we mention light-bodied, medium-bodied, or full-bodied, we actually refer to the texture of the wine. We try to assess if the wine is heavy or light. And what we want to compare it to is a glass of water. So when you want to assess the heaviness of the wine, you literally drink a sip of water, drink a sip of the wine, and does the wine taste heavier than the water? Yes, then this is full-bodied. Does it taste the same? Medium-bodied. Does it taste lighter? For example, the Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand would taste lighter. Then this is light-bodied. That's how you assess wine. It's basically that that texture, that feeling. Is it like does it covers your mouth? Can you almost chew it, or is it lighter than water, basically? So that's what we're trying to assess. And no, it doesn't affect the 5 points method.
Okay, amazing, thank you. Now, Patricia has asked, do smaller or larger wineries tend to be higher quality, or is this not a measure?
No, it's not usually a measure. It's not. You can have very large producers in Bordeaux, for example, they can produce a lot of wine, but
Mm.
of very good quality. And then you have small producers that have very little and that put all the grapes in it because it's much easier, right? So no, sadly not. I like to believe that frustratingly, the best way to assess the quality of a wine without trying it is seeing what the wine critics have rated it. And the best way to do this is a website called Wine Searcher. They aggregate all the wine critic scores in the world, and so you can literally look at these critic scores before buying them.
Interesting. Now, this is a question from myself, just while you're talking about this. What's your opinion on, do you use Vivino, the app? Have you
I
ever come
don't want
across
to get
that?
any. I don't want to get any enemies, but I hate Vivino.
Oh, no. Okay, okay. Well,
I'm sorry
no.
to say, because the reason why I don't like Vivino is because
Yeah.
it gives power to people who know nothing about wine, right? And they will rate it, and they will say, it's not good, and then give it 2 stars, and it's
Mm.
just like, yeah, but you know nothing. So it's again, I much prefer wine searcher in this case, just to assess the wine critics. In my opinion, it's a bit more relevant. Now, I know Vivino is incredibly powerful, but there are some wines that are it's not always a reference, right? But the price is usually most of the time an indication of the quality. I say most of the time, obviously, because you can always have an exceptions, but it's very rare to find a delicious wine very cheap and a very expensive wine that tastes horrible, right? It's incredibly rare. In my opinion, and I like to say this, in my opinion, this is true up to £250. Above that, bottles that are worth £3,000 are this is due to scarcity or a lot of marketing. But literally, if you buy a bottle of wine that is £250, it should taste much better than a bottle that costs you £50 or £10, right? It's like the more you spend until 250, the better will be the wine. That is my recommendation. Um, so yeah.
Perfect. Right, I'm going to try and squeeze in. Oh, we're so close on time. But this one says, now I don't know what this is, but you can educate us all. Do you think that Coravin systems or Coravin cork needle at home works to preserve and for how long?
Yes, it works. It's fantastic. It's such a great device. It basically replaces the oxygen in the bottle by a bit of CO2. And so, no, it's fantastic. They even released recently the champagne one. So this is the best way to have a glass of wine from your bottle without opening it completely. Now, they usually say it preserves the wine for up to 3 months. So don't think it's forever. Right? You can, it's as when you've carved in your wine, you want to open it within 3 months after that.
Okay, wow. This is amazing. Now, I might say to the questions that remain on this question and answer box, because there are still a lot to get through, but I don't want anyone to miss out if they've got their if they need to leave. So I want to say to you, let's remember those questions, and perhaps on May 13th we can come back and ask these questions to you again, Paul, and we can ask a few more. So. That was amazing. I feel like I've learnt so much, and I hope everyone watching this has learnt just as much as I have. And as I just mentioned, this is part one of our four-part journey with Paul, which is very exciting, as we that means we have three more wonderful sessions with him. And if you did enjoy today, these next sessions will build on beautifully from this foundation. So make sure to mark your calendars for May the 13th to have our second session. And keep an eye on your inbox for further details and links. And as I've mentioned again, but I keep wanting to promote it because it's so great, but you can purchase Paul's book in the resource section of Zoom. So Paul, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today, and thank you all for joining us and bringing such thoughtful questions. They were amazing, and we hope that you are now leaving this session feeling more confident, more curious about wine, and ready to approach it in a completely new way. I was saying to Paul before we went live, I am actually going to the pub after this, so I will be there, and I'm going to order a glass of wine, and I'm going to report back next time, and I'm going to tell my friends about what I've learned today, and hopefully you can all do the same. So from us all at Bonjour Paris, cheers, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session. And thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Poppy. Thank you very much for Bonjour Paris. Thank you.